Welcome to the Sellernomics Podcast, where we share valuable tips and information in the Amazon and e-commerce space. Each week, we deliver the best interviews with some of the top Amazon personalities in the industry to help you grow your business. Today's episode is brought to you by GETIDA, the global leader in FBA auditing and reimbursements. Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at getida.com/Sellernomics. And now, here are your hosts, Rob Stanley and Lisa Kinski.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sellernomics. Great to have everybody on. Lisa, this is crazy. Like, we're having some amazing guests already. I just feel like 2023 is going to be a great year for guests. Great topics. So just to kick this off, today's topic is going to be working on versus working in your Amazon business. This happens all the time. I can definitely attest to this. It's definitely one of those things.
Yeah, we see it a lot. I mean, especially because, Amazon entrepreneurs, it's their baby, right? It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and not really want to delegate out to other people. And then you can't be strategic. You're too in the weeds. So this is an awesome topic. I'm very excited for our guest.
Yes, absolutely. So let's bring our guest in the studio. Let's welcome Lipi from Escala. How's it going, Lipi? Good to see you.
It's going really well. Coming in from Tel Aviv, Israel. So I'm excited to be on the podcast. I've actually listened to the podcast a bunch, so I'm excited to be a guest.
Yes, we have one listener.
My mom
we know we got one listener.
I promise.
That's
so
funny.
we're gonna kick this off because this, I think, is a very important topic. I've seen this happen with many businesses where they're all working in the business instead of working on the business. And that can happen, right? Like sometimes if you had the business for a while, you just fall into that routine, right? And that happens. Absolutely. You're just like, hey, money's coming in. Why change anything? But why don't you kind of kick us off and start off with, why is it important for sellers to work on their business versus in their business?
Yeah, so we basically spend our entire lives solving this problem of helping Amazon sellers try to work on their business. And it's important to understand why that even happens in the first place, that so many sellers are caught up working in their business rather than on their business. And I think it's by design, like it should happen. Most Amazon sellers don't start out by getting venture capital money to start an Amazon brand, right? Most people start off with whatever money they've got. Maybe they went to some friends and family for some loans, and it started off as a side hustle. Many Amazon sellers started with a 9-to-5 job on the side. Some of them, maybe it was a COVID project, but it starts off almost as a side hustle until it's not anymore, and until it becomes a really serious thing. So there's like this evolution where it becomes a side hustle. Maybe at that point you see some success, you quit your job, and then all of a sudden this is a serious business. And we're kind of coining the motto of 2023 is that sellers are becoming CEOs. Like it's no longer just an Amazon store. It turns into this thing that's like a full business, and you've got cash cycles that you need to manage, and you've got different suppliers all over the world, and all of a sudden you have a team, and your team might not be in-house entirely. You might have a global team. So like all of a sudden this just side hustle turns into this real business, and you can no longer be managing it as if it's a side hustle. And that's when we start to say you should stop working in your business, which was really effective up until this point, and you should start working on your business so that you can free yourself up to focus on the things that are actually going to move the needle. That's different for everyone. In a lot of cases, it's product development. In a lot of cases, it's global expansion, or even channel expansion to a new channel. Sometimes it's just getting around to optimizing your listings. But pretty much every Amazon seller that we speak to says that they're not spending time the way that they would like to be spending time, and the way that they would know would be most productive for their business if they spent their time, but they just focus on whatever's the next most urgent thing. And that's what we call working in your business, is when you're in the day-to-day, you're guided by whatever's the most urgent, not whatever's the most important. So we try, the purpose of our business and kind of the problem that we've devoted ourselves to solving is, how do we break that cycle and help sellers go from working in to working on their business, which also as a benefit ends up being far more enjoyable for them.
Yeah, I love that. And it's exactly what you said. Like this, I think the phrase is this squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? So whatever's screaming the loudest is going to get their attention. And I think as an Amazon seller who starts this as a side hustle, they don't really envision it being a full-time business where they're going to require a team. So it can be really daunting and maybe something they hadn't considered of needing to outsource some of their work or, get some help. So where can these sellers start with making that transition from working in to on the business?
Yeah, so I think most sellers tend to be extremely creative people. Like the barrier to launching an Amazon business is the first question you have to ask yourself is, what product am I going to launch? And that scares off people who aren't necessarily creatives. Now, so if you're a creative person, you're more likely to start an Amazon business because you're more likely to be able to envision like a point of difference for a product. The downside of that is it's much harder for creative people unless you're, a very rare person who can be both creative and both systems driven. It's very hard to be both things. So most Amazon sellers tend to be creative, but not systems driven. So there's, to your question of like, where should you start? It's a really complex question for a lot of people. Our recommendation is always start with the process that is the most repetitive and most delegatable. And the way that we think of something that's delegatable is, could someone else do this at least 80% as well as I could? Not 100%, because you're always going to be the best at, a lot of things, at least in your eyes you are. But if someone else could do this 80% as well as me, then I should fundamentally get someone else to do it because my time can be better spent. You need to sort of step into this mindset of, I'm not going to do $15 an hour work. I am now a CEO and I need to, and sometimes it seems egotistical, but you kind of need that mindset in order to like manifest your business growing. So I need to put myself in a position where I'm making big decisions, doing impactful things, and not doing that $15 work, even though I probably could do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm going to give you a quick example. I was selling online for like 20 years, and I found myself at certain times out there doing shipping, and I'm like, thinking to myself, why am I out here doing shipping? Now there's a difference if obviously A, you don't have a shipping guy, or B, your guy's out sick, right? But, I had to really think about it. I'm like, okay, what is my time worth? What could I be working on? What could I be doing to drive this company, make more money, and hire a shipping person? So with that said, that of course, that was more FBM, just to be, clear here. But where do you see sellers typically spending too much time that maybe they should look at alternatives or hiring somebody or outsourcing?
Yeah. So the first thing that we always say is customer support. Sellers who are solopreneurs tend to just take the customer support on themselves. And because of the FBA model, you get so few tickets a day that you just think, you know what, I'm just going to handle this. The downside is that tickets that come in from FBA are inherently urgent because you need to get back to them within 24 hours. They demand urgent solutions. So it's not necessarily a thing about time. Maybe it only takes you 20 minutes a day, but it broke your pattern of focus 4 times for 5 minutes, and that's really bad. So we say like customer support, it's a really easy thing to outsource. Most of the tickets fall under sort of the same 4 or 5 buckets. So it's not a hard thing to delegate. And we say, the first thing you should do is do that. The next thing that we say is PPC management, right? Not PPC campaign setup, which requires a lot of thought, but PPC management, which is very rules-based. And a lot of people aren't using rules-based software for a number of different reasons. So if you're the one going in and really adjusting bids and saying, that's a negative keyword, or I want to increase the bid here, or whatever it is, that can be rule-based. And a lot of sellers spend a lot of time on those types of tasks. So I would say like, that's definitely something that you need to delegate. Obviously everything to do with supply chain, whether it's like reconciling shipments or setting up shipments or whatever it is, that tends to be very logical. And, there's no big decisions to be made there a lot of the time. And if they are, they can be escalated to you. So that's also something that you can delegate. There's really a lot of low-level tasks that exist for an Amazon seller that are inherently urgent. And what we say is try to get those off your plate as quickly as possible. A lot of the time, because these are extremely coachable tasks, you only need to hire 1 or 2 people. That's kind of the beauty of a young Amazon entrepreneur, is young in terms of like how many years they've been in the business, is that you don't need to go and hire a huge team to operate this until you get to a later stage. So those are kind of a few examples of key areas that you can get off your plate pretty quickly.
And I like what you said about hiring somebody who can do a delegatable task at least 80% well as you can do, right? But I think, and tell me if I'm wrong here, that one of the common objections to expanding the team was, well, it'll take too much time to train this person. Like, it's so much more difficult to complete a task and train someone simultaneously because it's going to slow your process down. So what can help sellers to move that process along with the training and the onboarding of these teams?
Yeah, well, that's an amazing question. That's, I would say, like where our solution comes in. You don't have to work with us, but the whole concept of building systems is so that the people that you're essentially, by building a system, an SOP, you're essentially empowering the person that you bring into the company to be extremely resourceful and independent. A lot of the time, sellers will hire someone with absolutely no system or infrastructure in place, and they'll basically say, here's your onboarding, just follow me and ask me questions every time you don't know what to do. And like, that is a terrible way to onboard someone. But for so many, sellers in the space that have like VAs, and I say VAs, if anyone's listening on audio, with like inverted commas, because we really don't like that term, because it's just like this generalist that, does a bit of everything, but nothing of anything. And so when we say build systems, it's so that people can be accountable to a specific outcome rather than a specific task. If you're just batching like a bunch of different tasks and saying, you do a bit of this, bit of that, and just follow me and you'll learn how to do it within 2 weeks, that is a recipe for failure. When you build systems, and it doesn't need to be the most robust, crazy system that it takes ages to build, you can start off small. Then that makes the hiring process a lot easier, and it makes it easier for the person to come in to actually have a positive impact on your business. And that's what we do in Escala, is we train people on how to build those systems specifically for e-commerce businesses.
Yeah, that's some great example. I loved your quote there about, the VAs. So that was really cool. Because, sometimes it's such a general term used, right? VAs is general term. Sometimes even, I don't want to say always, but sometimes a negative term, because people have probably gone through so many VAs trying to find the right one that, it's kind of like people are just like, I don't want to deal with a VA again type of thing. But you know what? One thing I want to talk about, and we were talking about this a little offline, was what should sellers focus on for 2023. But before you answer that, we do need to take a quick break, and we'll come right back and we'll talk about what should sellers focus on in 2023. Hang tight.
Today's episode is brought to you by GETIDA, the global leader in FBA auditing and reimbursements. Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics.
Yeah, so be sure to head on over to GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. Get that $400 in free FBA reimbursements. We're here with Lipi from Escala, and we're talking about working on versus working in your Amazon business. And just before the break, I was asking Lipi on what should sellers focus on in 2023. Lipi, tell us what they should be focused on.
So I think that a really important focus for 2023 would be find a single core function that exists within your business and try to document it from end to end, and just experience what that frees up for you. So let's take, for example, new product development, which I think all sellers are going crazy about, trying to develop new products. You're not just an Amazon seller, you're a CPG brand, and any CPG brand knows that you're only as good as the last product you launched, and you need to be launching it in order to grow. That's the most important lever. So take new product development. It has a clear start point of product ideation, which includes like keyword research and whatnot, and a clear endpoint, which is product launch, and try to document the entire thing from end to end, and see what that actually unlocks for you. So for example, if you document your process for going through keyword research to identify product opportunities, whether that's on Helium 10 or Jungle Scout, or whether it's inside of Seller Central itself, document that process. It can be, with a Loom video. What we prefer to do is start off by documenting the process map, and then each box in the process map has an SOP. But document that, and then you can hire someone and say, I want you to find me 10 opportunities a month, and just see what that unlocks for you. All of a sudden, you are the CEO who is presented with opportunities, and you're the decision maker. You don't need to be the one who's actually going and finding those opportunities. And so I would say, if you're someone who's never documented process before, start off with new product development, try to document it from end to end. We found an idea that we liked. How do we go about sourcing that? Okay, we found a few different suppliers. How do we go about choosing which supplier? How do we go about, doing the samples and inspections and different things like that? So, so I would say document that from end to end. Consider hiring someone to actually delegate that and just take that first step to becoming a CEO rather than a seller, and see what that means for your business. And I think especially in the case of new product development, you'll see that you have accelerated your ability to launch products, which is your biggest growth lever, and that will eventually translate into P&L growth. People often ask us, how does, systems are nice to haves, but how do they actually impact my top line, bottom line? And that's just one example of how it actually can impact. Like, if you accelerate your ability to develop new products by 50%, that's huge on your P&L. So systems can really, they can accelerate your business. They can free you up, and the value of your time is kind of like an unquantifiable commodity that you don't know until you free it up. Sometimes it can mean spending more time with your kids, which is like I don't have kids, but I know when I do, I'm going to want to spend a lot of time with them. So, so that's, just an example of like how important that is. And I think it should be on everyone's bucket list for 2023, if you've never done it before, to see what that feels like when you run a business that's based on systems.
And one strategy that I've heard, I like what you said about it's just as easy as walking through the process and creating a Loom video. And some people learn best that way, right? By watching a video, but some people need written instruction. And one strategy that I've heard is even delegating the transcription task to somebody and saying, hey, watch this video and write out step by step what I say in here. And even there, as the process creator, you can see if there's any gaps in the video itself. And then you have this living document that you can update as your processes and your SOPs change. Do you agree with that strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I think that it's important to start off by process mapping. So why do I say process mapping? Because if you go too granular into the details before you understand the macro level of the process, then those Loom videos are going to get lost in translation a bit. You're not going to understand necessarily the context. But once you have that process map and you say, okay, we start here and then we go here, and you've got the swim lanes for the different people, at that point, each of those boxes can become a Loom video. There's a lot of amazing tools out there that actually allow you to like transcribe a video, for example, but then there's SOP specific tools. Like one, for example, is Scribe, where you can literally click, it's an extension on Google Chrome. You just click on it and it records in the background, and then you go and do the process, and it captures it into an SOP that's a combination of text and screenshots. And then you can go in and edit it sort of to the level that you like. So there's amazing tools out there. Really, the gap a lot of the time is that process map, so that you can understand how different SOPs interact with each other and where an SOP starts and ends. And then, you can, we have a whole system for how you do it, but it doesn't need to be the most complex thing in the world, as long as there is some form of organization. So, like how to find this, because an SOP doesn't help unless it's searchable. But once you've sort of set that up, people are smart enough to work it out. Like, yeah, that's really all it takes. You don't even have to go so far out of your way to have an end-to-end system that's documented.
Scribe, Lisa, remember we were just talking about that.
Yes, I've tucked that away.
So no, we were just talking about that exact same thing earlier this week, I think it was, or I'm sorry, last week. We were late last week. I was watching like a reel or something like that. Somebody mentioned Scribe. They showed what it did, and I'm like, oh my God, we got to implement that. Literally, it's just a Chrome extension you put in. It'll start taking screenshots. It'll fill in the text. You can go and edit it, and you could send that, and it's almost like instant 90% done of your SOP that you want. And I was like, man, we got to implement that over here at GETIDA. So that's definitely something we're looking to do. They're always looking for, it's not necessarily shortcuts, right? Like, I mean, it is, but it's a shortcut that you should be using because it's going to take less of your day, less of your time. You can focus more on your business. And that's really what you want to do, is start focusing more on your business. And isn't that kind of like, that is working on versus working in, right? Focused on your business. So what do you kind of see as the best way to kind of structure your Amazon team? So when you're building this team, maybe who do you go to first, or who do you outsource first? I know that's multiple questions, but why don't you kind of give us your steps on when you're kind of putting the team together? Yeah.
So you spoke a lot before about, we spoke before about like the VA, And I'm very derogatory about the VA sort of word. I know a lot of sellers use it, so I try not to be too aggressive on this. But I think if you're giving someone the title of a VA, you're inherently telling them that they're a generalist. And you want specialists in your business, right? Even if that person does cover a wide range of tasks, you want them to be outcome-based and not task-based. If someone's task-based, you don't really give them the opportunity to grow and innovate. And some sellers would say, well, I just need them to download reports, so I would like that. But what if instead of telling someone you're a VA who downloads reports, you said, you are my Amazon admin manager or Seller Central manager. And every time something pops up in Seller Central, I want you to, let's say a new feature comes out, I want you to be the one to find it, and I want you to tell me about it. I want you to research what it is, and I want to report at the end of the week. So you can sort of give people additional responsibilities, even though they still remain kind of generalist VAs. Give them the title, talk to them about what the result that you're looking for is, and actually have them work towards that. You'll see that people are a lot more motivated, and you'll probably see higher retention rates. And that's something we work a lot on in Multiply Me's, like changing the stigma of offshore workers. But I would say in general, the first step for really designing your future state organization is to think, where do you want to be spending your time on a day-to-day basis, and building the operation around that. So what's your superpower? Is your superpower, optimizing listings, which I think a lot of sellers have really figured that out, and they can, within 30 seconds, look at a listing and tell you what's wrong with it. Is it in product development? A lot of sellers are really, they've become branding experts when it comes to like, what will customers want and how do I actually put that in front of them? So you really need to think of like where you want to be spending your time, and then build a team around that. So you have specialists in other areas of the business who can handle not only when everything's going right, but they can also handle it when things are going wrong. I think it's a big, especially if you're a 6-7 figure seller looking to become an 8-figure seller, that's a huge transition you need to make. Is you need to stop thinking of hiring generalists around you and you basically handle everything, but you've just got a bunch of task doers, and start thinking of, this is a serious business. I need to have, serious specialists around me. And that, you can find those overseas. You can still sort of leverage the offshore arbitrage for serious specialists, but it's a mindset shift that you need to make internally to say, I'm not going to hire a VA. I'm going to hire a listing specialist or a listing optimization specialist. And their job is to make sure all of our listings are converting at X. So that's kind of the tip that I would give going into 2023, is build the team around you that's going to allow you to expose your superpower as much as you want, and turn this into a business that you actually enjoy running on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's good information. And that kind of covers, I mean, I was kind of thinking to myself, where would we get started on this? Did we miss anything, maybe, Lipi, on where people should start? Because we just gave a lot of information, and it might be a lot thrown at somebody, and they're kind of listening, and they're like, that's great information, but where do I just even start? Where is my entry to this just to get going, right? And before you answer that, we do got a quick commercial break we got to take, and we'll be right back.
Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics.
Who doesn't like free money? Head on over to GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. Get that $400 in free FBA reimbursements. So once again, we're talking with Lipi from Escala, and we're talking about working on versus working in your Amazon business. And we could have put out a lot of great information, and I'd like kind of Lipi to kind of just help everybody out with just give them a real simple, here's where you're going to get started. And then I'd love for you to tell everybody more about Escala and kind of services, what you guys offer and how you help people.
And maybe too, even on top of where to get started, Lipi, sorry to jump in here, like what other tools they can use, if there's any other, if you have a recommendation. I mean, obviously we want to talk about Escala and a little bit about Multiply Me too, but any other, you said Scribe, which is a great one. What other recommendations do you have for like tools and software?
Yeah, so there's two, when we talk about sort of building systems, there's two really key tools that we use internally, that we use when we implement for Amazon sellers as well, that we've just found to be extremely effective. So number one is a software called Miro. A lot of people have heard of it. It's essentially like a digital whiteboard where you can that's where we create process maps, organizational charts, accountability charts. I think what sets Miro apart is that it's extremely user-friendly, but it's got a lot of competitors that are sort of serve a similar function. But I would say Miro, like, it's a great place to get started. I think sellers who start thinking of systems and straight away jump into the most complicated, convoluted process that they have and they build an SOP, like that's a mistake. Start off at the macro level and document your processes at a high level and then say, okay, one level deeper, what does that look like? One level deeper, what does that look like? Really, people should be able to understand the end-to-end flow. And that's going to give you a lot of clarity and structure. And, when it comes to Escala, like we'll do that for free for you, just to give you that structure of what does my business actually look like. So that's Miro. The second one is something called ClickUp. A lot of sellers have heard of it. Again, a lot of competitors. So whether you're using Monday or Asana or Trello, it's that's fine. I'm not here to I'm not getting referral fees on ClickUp, but but what we use ClickUp, we love that it's essentially extremely customizable. The piece of advice I would give to anyone who's using a project management tool is they're all the same, and the difference between them is the functions that you're never going to use. What's important is that you set up your basic step-by-step repeatable processes inside of ClickUp, and then try to veer away from email, WhatsApp, Slack, and have ClickUp or Monday as the central business hub. So by the time we finish working with sellers, what we want them to do is like, okay, you drive to the office, you make a cup of coffee, you sit down at your desk. The first thing you do is open ClickUp rather than email or Slack or whatever. And that's because all of the communication is happening in an environment where you're actually focusing on like the process of, okay, where do we sit with this new product that's in the pipeline? Where do we sit with this listing that we need to create? We said we were going to optimize that listing. Where does that sit? Is it at the graphic designer stage, or is it at the copy stage, or is it at the video stage? Where are we with that? So all of your repeatable processes can be documented in these project management tools as templates, and then use those templates every time you come to that process. I think a lot of sellers, they do repetitive processes over and over again, but they kind of let themselves be surprised by it every time from scratch. It's like, you've done this a million times, but still it's like, oh, I've never documented this, so I guess I have to figure it out again. Try to use ClickUp or whatever project management tool it is to document those repetitive processes and have it as a centralized business hub. That's going to be especially helpful if you've got a remote team. So those two softwares are probably the ones that I would say, if you don't have like a project management tool and a mapping tool, check those two out. They're fantastic, and they can really help you level up and build those systems in a tech-based environment.
I'll have to check out ClickUp. I am an Asana stan. I have to say I'm big on Asana because I like that you can do the start date and end date of tasks and contingent upon and assignments and things like that. But I'm sure ClickUp has all that, so I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't like they're all the same. You can do the same functionality on all of them. It's just about what are you used to, and what do what works for you. I wouldn't say it's where if Asana is working, it's not worth switching to ClickUp, because it's about the outcome. It's not about the inputs.
It's a very good point.
Yeah, there is a lot of them out there. You know what? That's great information. Now we got everybody kind of a starting point on where they can get started at. But tell us about Escala. Tell us about Multiply Me. How can people take advantage of these, great services that you guys are doing? And then, of course, let's go into how they get a hold of you if they want to reach out.
Yeah. So thanks for the opportunity to pitch about that. Essentially, we've built two businesses that help sellers work on their business rather than in their business. The first one is Multiply Me. It's going to be a lot easier for people to sort of grasp. It's essentially, we find extremely high level, high quality talent in the Philippines that we can place in your business. So we're not like an agency. We're finding people who are going to be a part of your team. Our point of difference is that it's extremely high quality talent. So we've placed, Amazon marketplace managers, brand managers in a bunch of different aggregators, even COO level sometimes, head of supply chain. So really, top 1% talent in the Philippines into your business. You're still obviously leveraging the geo arbitrage in terms of cost, but it is slightly more expensive than your typical VA. It's just the output is totally, on a different level. Escala is essentially a management consulting agency where all the things we just spoke about systems and, building the structure of the SOPs and the process maps, Escala is a business that can do that for you. So we work with you over the space of let's say 6 months, And in those 6 months, we'll interview your team, we'll interview you, agencies you work with, really everyone, to try to understand how does your business work. And then we map that for you into process maps and SOPs. And because we've worked with so many sellers at this point, we know what processes should look like, and we know what SOPs should look like, and what your team structure should look like. And if you're 6 figures trying to go to 7, or 7 trying to go to 8, we know what that next stage looks like, and we can give you recommendations and help you implement that through the system. So by the time we finish working with you, you are pretty much guaranteed to be working on your business and not in your business. And it's a beautiful combination if you get to work with both of them, as many sellers have. We build the systems through Escala, and then we find you the talent in Multiply Me, and they just go hand in hand really nicely.
And Lipi,
it's a perfect match. For
those that are listening, let them know exactly the website for both of those. Spell it out to them, because Multiply Me is a little bit different, and make sure with Escala too.
We're working on getting the domain we want. We're very close, but it's it's Multiply. So Multiply is spelled regularly, and then MII.com. So that's for Multiply Me. And for Escala, it's We Are Escala, which is ESCALA.com.
Nice. And if they need to reach out to you, it's Lipi, LIPI at weareescala.com. If you want to follow up with Lipi on any of the information you heard, or you're just interested in asking another question, or maybe something we didn't cover, feel free to reach out. You could always leave a comment if you're watching our video on YouTube. Leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll make sure that we get that over to Lipi to get that answered. If you're listening to the recorded version of this, excellent information.
I'll just say,
so cool. Go ahead.
We actually released a course recently with Escala, which is a lower cost version and great for sort of the sellers that are getting started off and want to learn a bit more about how we do pretty much everything we do at Escala. So that course is valued at $3,000. I actually created a 50% discount using the code GETIDA. So if you want to go in for the next month and use the code GETIDA, you'll get 50% off that course, which literally takes you from end to end of how to systemize your Amazon business if you're willing to spend the time to do it yourself.
That's amazing. What a great offer. Where can they find that on the Escala website? Is there like a specific landing page or a link?
Yeah. So it'll take you straight there. Otherwise, you can go to academy.weareescala.com and you'll find it there. But if you go to the website, you'll be able to navigate to it pretty comfortably.
Fabulous. Thank you, Lipi.
Man, that's great information. We definitely covered on how to not work on your business, work in your business. But work on your business. And that's great information. Listen, the cool part is we got Lipi coming on again in about a month here. We're going to be doing a demo, and this is going to be some great information. So be sure to, go over to GETIDA.com's YouTube channel. I think it's youtube.com/GETIDA, GETIDA, and keep an eye out or subscribe to the channel so that way you'll get an alert when we have Lipi on coming up here in a few weeks, doing an actual demo of a lot of this information we've been covering and a lot more. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. Lipi, this is great information. Did we miss anything? Because I want to make sure we got everything out that this is such good information. I want to make sure they hear. So
it was very thorough, and I really held myself back from going super deep.
We don't want to lose everybody.
We'll do that. We'll do that in the demo.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So be sure everybody to head over to youtube.com/GETIDA and subscribe to that channel so you can get an alert when we do have that demo go live in a few weeks. And thank you again for being on the Sellernomics podcast. We do appreciate it. And Lisa, another great one. Wow, some great information.
We knew it would be.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, Lipi.
All right. Thank you, Lipi. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Sellernomics Podcast. Special thanks to our sponsor, GETIDA. Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. Be sure to join us again next week for more great tips on how to grow your business. And thanks again for listening.